Hello DV Besties and welcome back to the Design Bundles YouTube channel. My name is Laura. If you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss a thing. This week especially is a fun one because we're talking about one of my favorite heat transfer vinyl specialty materials to use, and that is puff vinyl. So we always get so many questions about puff vinyl. I always get so many questions about puff vinyl on my personal channel, and it's really no surprise. It's really, really cool. It was popular back in like the 80s and now it's coming back again. That puffy, like textured look is just so cute and I love working with it. But people find it a bit intimidating. If you've never used puff before, it can be a little scary because the manner in which it has to be heat pressed is really specific. And if you heat it for too long, it comes out like ramen noodles. And if you heat it too hot, it comes out like ramen noodles. So we're gonna really focus our energy today on talking about the do's and don'ts when working with puff vinyl and how to ensure that perfectly puffy result. And we're gonna spend a lot of the time talking about the heating portion because that is where most of the mistakes with puff happen. Let's dive right into it. We're gonna make a spooky design on a pocket of a shirt today. We're gonna talk all about puff vinyl. Okay, so first I want to show you this shirt I made last week with puff vinyl. Here it is, just like up close and personal. I'll get like a closer shot of it as well so you can really see the texture and the puff. This is like what a full front design with puff would look like. As you can see, the texture is just really fun and it is possible to achieve as long as you're using the right heat settings. So today we're going to be doing a pocket design. Let's start with the easy stuff and talk about the materials you're going to need for this project. Okay, so for this project you're going to need, of course, puff vinyl. I'm using Siser Easy Puff in the color orange. I love Siser Easy Puff for a lot of reasons, but I'm going to give you my little 30-second spiel here. Siser Easy Puff is my favorite because number one, you only have to press it one time. There are certain brands of puff vinyl that you have to press a second time without the carrier sheet, and I think that just opens up a lot of room for error. Whenever you're pressing that second time, it really introduces the possibility of overpressing or overheating in a way that doesn't really exist when you only press one time. So for that reason, I like Easy Puff the best. It's a one press situation. And then also it stands out from its competitors to me because of the color range. I love how many colors you get with Siser, and especially with their Easy Puff. They just have a lot of color varieties that I find a lot of other companies don't have yet in the puff. Love Siser Easy Puff, highly recommend. We'll talk about the heat settings a little later on in this video, so stick around for that. But know that that is what I'm using today and that is what I recommend. I get mine from my craft source. I'm also just using a black t-shirt today for our little Halloween design. This is just a Gildan and I'm gonna use a pocket tee today because we are gonna do a little jack-o'-lantern face on the pocket. Other than that, for puff, the other materials you need are just standard Cricut materials. You're gonna need a regular grip mat, something to cut with like a Cricut. I'm using my Cricut Maker 3 today, but you could do this on the Joy Extra or even the Joy, especially because we're doing that smaller pocket design. And then you're gonna need scissors and a weeding hook and a heat press. The one thing I will say about the heat press is I highly recommend using a clamshell heat press or a heat press that allows you to really firmly press, like an auto press, whether you have the HTV Rod auto press or the Cricut auto press, something that allows you to apply firm pressure. A lot of the mistakes I see people make with puff are that they're using like a Cricut Easy Press or another handheld heat press or even an iron. And because of that, you're just really not able to get the pressure and the even heating that is required to make puff look its best. So can you do puff with an Easy Press? Yes, you can, but you just need to make sure that you're evenly heating whatever surface you're covering. So make sure your Easy Press is big enough to cover the entirety of your design. And you're also gonna wanna put your back into it because you definitely want firm, consistent pressure for the entire 8 seconds of pressing. Luckily, it's a short press, so it's doable, but I find that using a clamshell press or an auto press just allows removing that room for error and makes sure it's perfect every time. Okay, let's jump over to the computer and get our design set up and we'll talk about some of the specifics for how we cut puff. Okay, so here we are in Cricut Design Space. I've already got my design pulled in. You can see right here, we've got our little jack-o'-lantern face, maybe like a monster face. I don't know, he's kind of scary. All I need to do is, in real life over here, I'm gonna measure the pocket of my shirt really quick so that we can make sure we have it sized appropriately. So I'm just gonna find my little measuring tape here. I usually do about 4.5 inches in width for any pocket design, but I always like to just double check. And sure enough, 4.5 is about what we have to work with, and really about 4 on the height. Little tip, always think about your design and whether it's wider than it is long or longer than it is wide, and then set whatever the longer edge is to the max you can have. So that way you don't make a mistake. So we're gonna set it to 4 in height right here. That makes it about 3.5 in width, which is perfect. That's gonna be great for what we're doing. And since this is just like a little 1-layer design and we're doing it in 1 color, because I can see that the designer here has broken this up into multiple cuts, I'm just gonna go ahead and weld everything together just to keep it simple and make sure we don't have to worry about things moving around on us. I could have used attach just as much as I used weld, but in this case, since we're cutting everything in 1 color and in 1 layer, it doesn't matter. And since there's no overlap in our design, also doesn't matter. So I'm gonna go ahead and click make it. I am not gonna save this to my stuff. I do want to cut on matte, and you do mirror puff vinyl. Just like normal heat transfer vinyl, you're gonna mirror this. So I'm gonna go ahead and click mirror, and then I'm gonna click continue. I believe there is a puff setting on the maker now. I'm gonna check for it when it pops up here in a second, but I usually always cut my puff vinyl on the everyday iron-on setting because it works. Why mess with what's working? But I'm gonna look really quick just to see if there's a puff setting. There is not. So I would recommend just cutting it on everyday iron-on. That is what I always cut on. So go ahead and cut on that. It is gonna prompt you to place, or to make sure the mirror is turned on, which we did, and to place your material shiny side down, but that is where puff differs from a regular HTV. We're actually gonna cut this shiny side up. I'm gonna go ahead and place this on my mat. So let me go get it really quick. Listen, do not judge me. My mat has a ton of junk on it. So we're gonna take our puff. Here's the shiny side. You can see it's very shiny. And the matte side of puff is actually, it has a different texture than normal heat transfer vinyl. When you feel it, you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just a little bit more matte and smoother. So that's the side that's going to go down on our mat. And I'm going to place it shiny side up here. Sometimes I do have trouble getting my puff to really stick to my mat, especially right now when it has a lot of junk on it. So I'm just gonna get some Scotch tape and I'm going to tape it down. Do I recommend this as like an official method? No, but it works. And if you're having problems like I am with it kind of curling up and not really sticking onto your mat, tape it down. Now, if you choose to tape it down like I am here, just to make sure everything stays nice and snug, make sure that the tape isn't going to overlap where your design is actually being cut, because that could interfere with how well your design gets cut. So just make sure that the tape isn't in any spot where the design is actually going to end up. Just keep it safe. And I just used 3 pieces of tape. Now we're good to go. Let's load this in our Cricut and get it cut. You can see we've got a little piece sticking up there in the corner, but it's not ultimately gonna matter because I do have 3 pieces of tape on this, so we should be good to go. Okay, and while our Cricut is cutting, we're gonna go ahead and preheat our heat press. So this is also something that is a little bit different. We're only gonna heat press at 280 degrees for 10 seconds. So I think I said 8 before, it's actually 10 full seconds. So go ahead and let your heat press be preheating to 280 degrees and set it at 10 seconds, and we will let it preheat while we weed. Okay, so typically I would have like an overhead camera here and show you the weeding process, but we're gonna kind of just breeze right through this because weeding puff is exactly like weeding any other type of heat transfer vinyl. In fact, I find it easier to weed. I think it is really like buttery when you weed it and therefore very easy to work with. And because this design is so simple and so small, it's gonna take me like 30 seconds to weed this. So I'm just going to chat a little bit about some puff vinyl tips while I'm weeding here and kind of cutting it down to size. So I've pretty much told you the most important things to remember when you're cutting with puff vinyl. Really, like your quick facts on puff vinyl are it's easy to work with as long as you set your temperature appropriately and have firm pressure for the right amount of time. Some puff vinyls do force a double press, or that's what they recommend in their heat settings. I'm so glad that Siser Easy Puff doesn't, because to be honest with you, I think that that opens up a lot of room for error and a lot of room to make mistakes. We're already done weeding. Also, remember to cut puff mirrored but shiny side up. If you can remember all those things, you're gonna be a puff vinyl pro in no time. So that being said, let's go preheat our shirt and then we're gonna be ready to press this thing on. Okay, here we are in my little heat press corner. I'm gonna go ahead and press the front of my shirt just to make sure we get all the extra moisture out of it, and also to make sure everything is good and flat, because you don't want your puff vinyl adhering to any wrinkles that would affect the longevity of your design once you get those wrinkles out. I'm just picking a couple pieces of fuzz off, and then I'm gonna go ahead and press this for the full 10 seconds, even though we're not fully preheated. That's okay. We're just doing this to get moisture and wrinkles out of the shirt, and that should be fully achievable even at 200 degrees here. I'm gonna press for 10 seconds, and then I'm just gonna leave this on the plate and come press my puff in just a second. It looks good, it feels warm. We are good to go on this. I'm just gonna let it sit until we hit 280 degrees. Okay, so we've just hit 280 degrees. Here's our design, just for memory there. We got our little monster or jack-o'-lantern face, whatever it is. And we're gonna go ahead and just put it on our shirt here, just like we would with normal heat transfer vinyl. Especially with Easy Puff, I don't find that you really need to cover it with anything because we're only gonna be pressing for 10 seconds here. And I think the direct contact actually helps create a puffier design, especially when we're only pressing for 10 seconds one time. With that being said, I'm not gonna cover it at all. I'm just gonna close my clamshell press, let it run out the full 10 seconds. And this is not one you wanna walk away from your press for because as soon as it starts beeping, we are gonna be lifting the hatch. So you really don't want it to press for any longer than the 10 seconds, and I'm gonna show you what it looks like immediately after pressing here. Okay, so as you can see, it's already really puffy, and the carrier sheet doesn't even really stick. It just pops right off after that press. And there's how puffy it is, just coming right off the heat press. It looks so fun and puffy. It turned out perfectly. So let's pull it off the press, and I will talk a little more about this before we wrap up. Okay, so here she is, our puffy little jack-o'-lantern shirt. It turned out so cute, and all in all you can see that Puff is not that hard to use. It's actually a really simple process. You just have to take the right precautions with pressure and heat and making sure that everything's done for the appropriate amount of time. And if you do that, you really get a great result every time. When you take care of these shirts or totes or whatever you're putting Puff on, I've actually seen a lot of people put Puff on hats lately, which I think is really cute. Do not put these in the dryer. This is a hand wash only type of situation, maybe on the gentle cycle if you want to throw it in the washer, but hang to dry for sure. You don't want this puffiness losing any of its puff. That being said, I hope you loved this Puff Vinyl tutorial. We've had so many questions about Puff, and I think that it's something that is well worth learning how to use because the result is just so cute. I especially think Puff is so fun for the holidays. I think there's a lot of seasonal opportunities to use Puff and to use it well. So I hope you enjoy it as we walk into this holiday season. Make all the Puff Vinyl things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. We're back here every week with all the crafty tutorials and even tips for running your own crafty business. My name is Laura Lambert. You can find me personally at It's Laura Lambert, anywhere you watch social media, and I would love to connect with you personally. So follow me here on YouTube or elsewhere, shoot me a DM. I would love to connect with you and hear what's inspiring you lately and what you're making lately. And with that being said, happy crafting and happy Puff Vinyl.